It is my distinct honor to introduce our next speaker, Professor Pius V. Thomas, a professor from the Department of Philosophy at Assam University, Silchar. Professor Thomas is a scholar whose work traverses the vast landscape of contemporary Western philosophy, ethics, and critical hermeneutics. His research is deeply rooted in the pursuit of justice and understanding, exploring the philosophies of Rabindranath Tagore and Mahatma Gandhi, the complexities of human rights, and the delicate balance between democracy and religion. His scholarly output is truly remarkable, with over 40 published papers and a series of significant volumes. Most recently, his books include Cosmopolitan Thought and the Displaced, and Journeys on the Margin, published in 2023 and 24 respectively. This year, he furthered the discourse on global justice with his edited volume, Human Rights Perspectives. Dr. Thomas continues to push the boundaries of thought with several forthcoming work, including a critical look at the contemporaneous of Gandhi and the patterns of intersubjectivity. His research also reaches into the spiritual and comparative realms, having led a significant project on the concept of meditation in the Tibetan Buddhism, supported by the United Board and the Chinese University of Hong Kong. With a career dedicated to understanding the margins, the ethical, and the intercultural, he brings a wealth of wisdom to the ICTPR 2025. Please join me in welcoming Professor Thomas, sir. And it is my pleasure to introduce the chair. Sir, if you could just be on the dais. And it is my pleasure to introduce the chairperson for this session, Dr. Amrita, Satapathy, the head of the School of Humanities, Social Sciences and Management at IIT Bhubaneswar. Dr. Satapathy's research interests include travel, life and creative writing, media and pop culture, and creative writing. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Amrita Satapathy. Ma'am will chair the session now. I'll give the mic to you.
So I would now like to invite Professor Pius V. Thomas to begin his session. Looking forward to your session, sir.
Good morning to all of you. Respected Chair, Dr. Amrita Satapathy, distinguished scholars and dear friends. Let me thank the organizers of this wonderful conference first. And particularly Dr. Sritama Mishra, who is instrumental in inviting me specifically for this conference. Very happy to see a lot of scholars, distinguished professors, students of various disciplinary background coming together. So I think one of the most important need of all our discussion is a kind of interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary or multidisciplinary framework and understanding. So I'm happy to see that here. When we think of this theme that I've selected, that is reality and thought, embodiment and lived experience, I think, particularly from a phenomenological point of view, there is a conglomerate of three very important ideas: consciousness, intersubjectivity, lived world, or Lebenswelt in German, life world. That is the way it is translated. And if you come to consciousness, as Professor Srinivasan was telling, so many anchoring, so many viewpoints, scientific, neuroscientific, philosophical, psychological, cognitive, so many. If you come to intersubjectivity, intersubjectivity is basically a critical theoretic or phenomenological framework or concept of understanding. There also you have umpteenth number of conceptual frameworks. But if you come to this lived world, broadly internally, that is without much of a difference of opinions, it is culture broadly. Culture, cross-cultural, intercultural, kind of looking at the world in which we are living, the world shared by us. We share the world. That is the idea. So my ambition, it is slightly overambitious, to think about this particular thought and all that, not here, here it is not possible, to make a kind of intercultural sense of embodiment. Is it possible? I do not know. Philosophers are here. And Professor Srinivasan was just mentioning about time, Husserl and all that. Do we get some kind of clues from there? I look forward to that. And in my presentation, actually, philosophy is such a very old repository of ideas. Not like cognitive science or psychology, but a kind of modern human science. It's very old. So if you talk about realism, there are hundreds of shades to it. If you talk about idealism, there are hundreds of shades to it. Across different cultures, different geographical areas, etc., etc. So what I'm trying to do is, from the point of view of this particular kind of perspective, pick up randomly certain ideas and try to align them to make me lead at least to certain kind of a possible conclusion. You may not agree. You will challenge. That openness is given to you. We have great scientists like Professor Andrew Briggs and many others. So I'll slowly move on to this. So reality, I think, may not be correct. Three prominent thought patterns: metaphysical, one; scientific, of course, scientific in the old Newtonian sense, and the quantum theoretic; and phenomenological, or phenomenology. So what is thought according to metaphysics? Thought according to various traditions of metaphysics is casual and necessary entity and the core and substratum of rational inquiry. This definition is slightly made by me. You can challenge it. Then it represents the spectrum between the fundamental reality and the ultimate reality. So this is a very important discussion which is going on in various aspects of philosophization. Not only in things related with metaphysics, in political philosophy, in cultural studies. This is a very important contested area. That is fundamental reality and the ultimate reality. Can we talk about both? And if you come to ancient Greek thought, this has been captured in First Cause and Reason. I'm just taking the main words. The nature of human knowledge, another important milestone. Enlightenment thinking, Kant, transcendental idealism. The interconnectedness of thought and being by Hegel. And you have a series of left Hegelians and structuralists, post-structuralists, and all these people. You can see this shade of what is the ultimate reality, or what is thought, what is philosophy. That which integrates knowledge and liberation according to Indian philosophy. Come to Indian philosophy, we have a very important integration taking place where liberation and knowledge come together. So when it comes to science, it is different. Science would say that it's a biological brain activity to survive. That is thought. You adjust. Organisms adjust. Some of the scientists may not agree with me because this is basically from an evolutionary or evolutionist theory's point of view. Therefore, thought generates knowledge. You see an equation here. Thought is leading to knowledge. It is absolutely objective result of such an activity, the scientific objectivism. The scientific method is a continuous process which usually begins with observations about the natural world. Okay? The other things you read, I'm not reading. Thought generates knowledge through empirical means. A very important emphasis here, empiricism, not rationalism. If you come to philosophy, you have this big debate going on, whether what is the source of knowledge, whether it is empirical, experiential, or is it rational. When you come to Kant, you see that No, the mind, the structure of mind. The structure of reality will determine what is knowledge. And if you come to quantum mechanics, there are many scholars here, they challenge the old philosophical idea or philosophical or naive scientific idea that reality emphasizing probabilities, indeterminacy, and the role of observation in shaping reality. So the role of observation or observer. So if you come to reality, the next point, metaphysics, reality is fundamentally subjective consciousness or objective consciousness, both. And what the subjective mind gathers or represents as reality is knowledge, thought to reality. We have a lot of schools say metaphysical idealism, nominalism, epistemological idealism, etc., etc., so on and so forth. Reality is fundamentally mind independent, but the ultimate reality, objective mind, conscious mind. It is realism, mind independent reality. Whether you exist or not, this board will exist. That's it. Reality is matter and materialistic. The first one was telling reality is mind, consciousness, all that, or idea. In more philosophical language, it is idea. Metaphysical fundamental reality is either pure absolute mind or matter. So fundamental reality is either pure absolute mind or matter. That entails, I do not know, this is challengeable, debatable. Ontology, knowledge of the ultimate reality. When we talk about metaphysics, we have ontology. The famous question of Leibniz, if any philosophy student is here, they can easily remember that. Why there is something rather nothing? That is the question. There is something. There is something. Why? All this could have been nothing. No. Why? That is the ontological question. Ontological, the presence. Epistemology, knowledge about fundamental reality. Next stage. When it comes to the ultimate reality, metaphysics open it to cosmology, eschatology, soteriology, and axiology. Value theories, about future, about death, about life after death, all that. Do you agree with that? If you don't agree with that, I'm happy. Because there are metaphysicians who don't agree with this. But I am making this pronouncement here. Science methodologically affirms only fundamental reality. It doesn't talk about ultimate reality. It cannot. There are perhaps some quantum theories, but basically science would say that no, because the organisms respond to the climate environment. So you cannot say that this would be the ultimate reality. No. You can say what. Why is difficult. Philosophy will ask, or metaphysics will ask, why? We'll come to that. Now comes to I think that my concern, phenomenology. Phenomenology is completely in a different domain. Challenging. Thought is fundamentally a matter of conscious experience. Not the way materiality, I use the word in my abstract. Some people were thinking, oh, this is not English, it's un-English. Or ideality. I'm telling to make it as to show the voluminous of this idea. The voluminous nature of the idea. While metaphysical understanding of thought is based on externality and objectivity, and ideality, materiality, phenomenology mediates on things appear to us in consciousness. Simple, basic things I am telling. Thought begins from the structures of consciousness and how they shape our understanding of the world. It is reversing. It's proactive. It emphasizes, Professor was also mentioning about that, it emphasizes the importance of consciousness as the active constituting element of the world as we experience it. There's a lot of difference. It is not there, we, our consciousness. Reality is the lived experience of individuals. Next idea of reality. It is based on the understanding of how people perceive, interpret, and give meaning to their social worlds. The key marker here is the concept of consciousness. The first important part or the marker or the conglomerate that I was talking about, that is consciousness. And this consciousness is marked by phenomenology with a very important idea, that is intentionality. Consciousness is fundamentally intentional. It is not something there out, independent from us. No. It is always directed toward an object as intentionality. Intentionality is always directed. Okay? So it makes a lot of difference. For Heidegger, all these are a world of its own. Husserl or Brentano or the other great phenomenologists or existential phenomenologists like Heidegger, Merleau-Ponty, Sartre, later existentialists, post-phenomenologists. All these are a world of its own. So I'm just mentioning the key points. For Heidegger's consciousness, sorry, it's a mistake. For Heidegger, apostrophe is not needed. For Heidegger, consciousness as existence embedded in temporality and world-relatedness. So here comes a very important concept of temporality, time. Now comes the most important aspect, which I think is important for the discussion that we are planning to bring in. Embodied reality. Maurice Merleau-Ponty, another important thinker, reframes consciousness as the epiphenomenon of embodied perception. Embodiment. Body presence. The living body presents a third category that unites and transcends the physiological and the psychological. This is the fundamental category and the third category as well. Perception is fundamentally embodied and world-directed. See? Perception, thought, and reality. So most of the time we tend to see perception as a tool. No. So if you come to the psychology of sensation, we have this idea, sense organs, perception, organized sensation is perception, then thought, concepts. But that is different. Here it is different. It's a different, altogether different idea that Merleau-Ponty is putting forward. Another post-phenomenologist, Dan Sahavi, argues, I quote, unless a mental process is pre-reflectively self-conscious, there will be nothing it is like to undergo the process, and it therefore cannot be a phenomenally conscious process. This Merleau-Ponty also is explaining in a different language. Merleau-Ponty makes it more emphatic as he observes, Dan Sahavi is our contemporary, he's alive. He's a psychiatrist, keeps on writing, one of the most important authority of post-phenomenological thinking, Dan Sahavi, but Merleau-Ponty is no more gone. He observes, intransitive self-consciousness is a primitive form of self-consciousness in the sense that it does not require any subsequent act of reflection or introspection. So perhaps in conventional psychology or conventional epistemology, we have this notion. Where do we start? Starting point. But here they say that it is pre-reflective. It is already there because it is embodied, but occurs simultaneously with awareness of the object. Awareness, pre-reflective awareness. Does not consist in forming a belief or making a judgment, and is passive in the sense of being spontaneous and involuntary. This tacit self-awareness involves a form of non-objective bodily self-awareness. This is the justification of Maurice Merleau-Ponty. An awareness of one's lived body, or embodied subjectivity, correlative to experience of the object. Time. We'll keep on traveling. Okay, yes. So what is embodied reality? The next section. I think there is a logical connection in what I am presenting. Yes. Merleau-Ponty's phenomenology of embodiment reveals that consciousness is not a disembodied mental substance or a purely neural process. What is he telling? Disembodied. Perhaps Indian Vedanta can make a dialogue with this. Neuroscience can make a dialogue with this. Psychology can make a dialogue with this. But emerges through the lived body's engagement with this environment. That is embodied reality. Reality is embodied. That's what he's telling. It's not embodied reality alone. Reality itself is embodied. Perception is not a science of the world. It is not even an act. A deliberate taking up of position. Taking up of purpose. It is the background from which all acts, sanctum sanctorum, horizon, and is presupposed by them. Just like Kant. Kant says, transcendental idealism, we presuppose space and time in everything. Embodied action, sensory motor capacities, and practical engagement with meaningful context are not merely peripheral to consciousness, but constitute the very structure of it. Highly debatable point. Perhaps I think the later post-phenomenology thinkers like Thomas Fuchs, these people are all into psychiatry, all that. Thomas Fuchs, then Ide, who is coming out with phenomenology and technology. Paul Weber, I don't remember his name. There are several people into this wonderful way of looking at embodiment from different aspects and dimensions. So what I'm trying to drive home, these ideas are giving some important insights in understanding AI. Okay? Am I right? Fine. So, lived world or life world or Lebenswelt. The life world, the next category. We are moving from category to category. Conglomerate, don't forget. These three are there. Yeah. The life world, according to Husserl, is a singular unitary world horizon within which we take ourselves to exist along with everyone else and everything else that exists. We are not independent islands. We are sharing a world, a lived world. In this sense, the life world is a universal horizon of experience which we always already presuppose and which structures in advance our experiences as experiences belonging to one, coherent spatio-temporal whole. The life world is that which is taken for granted and indeed relied upon and valid by each of us individually and collectively in our everyday activities. You can compare it with the linguistic turn in philosophy. All these are simultaneously perhaps happening. Ontological turn and linguistic turn. How do we know the reality? We were thinking that reality is out there. Through our sensory perception, we know. Okay? But the linguistic turn would say that we are knowing reality through language. Wittgenstein and some of these Saussure, from a different angle, but you can call this maybe an elephant. Is there any problem to this? Nothing. Because we name it. It is a social construction. So many of our divine things, many of our metaphysical ideas, many of our dogmas are all created by us. That is the point, nothing else. They are all created by social construction. Yes. The life world that which is taken for granted and indeed relied upon as valid by each of us individually and collectively in our everyday activities. It is structured according to meanings, relations and expectations that are in part the products of history and culture. So culture, I told you, culture will come. Lived world and culture. It is intelligible to speak of a plurality of life worlds corresponding to the multiplicity of cultural traditions. How many cultures are there? It is better to use Derridian language. Multitude. We do not know. Yes. Now I think these two ideas can be connected in a wonderful idea which these people were developing. That is intersubjectivity. Truth is intersubjective corroboration. If you know philosophy, there are several theories of truth, no? Correspondence theory of truth, coherence theory of truth, propositional theory of truth, pragmatic theory of truth. But people like Habermas, those who have done this, kind of later phenomenon, I won't call him a phenomenologist, but he's a critical theorist, he would say that it is intersubjective corroboration. We decide what is truth. That's it. In simple language. Don't mistake, lot of complications. Intersubjectivity as a concept finds its source of meaning from the idea that the core of human action and its social dynamics is constituted in relationships and communication, the result of a shared world. Through communication, through a shared world, we create meaning. And the meaning dimension is different from the factual dimension. Okay, there is a factual world. Of course, we have to agree with that. 1 + 1 is 2. Suppose if I say that, because factual statements you can say either true or false. Suppose if I say that there are 1,000 people inside this room, the statement is true or false? False. How do you know? Count. That's all. But suppose if I say that you have a girlfriend. Suppose, luckily by God's grace, there is a girlfriend. You go and tell your girlfriend, I love you 150 kilos. Can you say that? Impossible, because such things cannot be quantified. And you say that my heart is full of red for you, or green for you, and your girlfriend is taking you to a laboratory. Open his heart, let me see. Not possible. It's a metaphoric statement. Those statements are in the realm of meaning. And we live a life in the realm and domain of meaning, primarily. Okay, that's the meaning of embodiment. Emotional embodiment, intercultural embodiment, etc., etc. Yes. Husserl speaks of ecological intersubjectivity. Now there are so many theoretical deviations within this concept of intersubjectivity. Husserl will talk about empathetic and egological intersubjectivity, because he says that it looks at the interworld and otherness as being constitutive of an epistemological and developmental psychological negotiation of intersubjectivity. That is the statement. It's not my word. Sorry. This I have taken from a great book on intersubjectivity. I'll tell you later. One of the best books written on intersubjectivity. So, Husserl would say that you cannot know the other, but you can know you and make that stand in dialogue with the other. The kind of epistemological understanding of the other. The other subject. But there is an opposite. That is radical intersubjectivity. It is a pre-reflective opening to the other, openness to the other. Martin Buber, Emmanuel Levinas, Merleau-Ponty. It is position that emphasizes the inevitability of a primeval, ethical, phenomenological otherness and thus implied interworldness. There is an otherness in all of us. For example, what's your mother tongue? Korean. Who taught you mother tongue? You learned social framework. That means language is already there. Okay. You learned it. This is the way you automatically come to know. It is a pre-reflective. It is not that, oh, I am now 1 year old, let me go and learn Oriya. No. It is happening. Noam Chomsky would say that there is a kind of what we call, that is this positivist idea. There is pre-programmed faculty for language. You can't compare these two ideas. Chomsky is somewhere else. For the sake of explaining this, I told you this. Chomsky is different. So radical intersubjectivity, I have another important thinker who is Maurice Merleau-Ponty. His analysis of intersubjectivity tells us that, of course, I have your problem. Social linguistics is there, behavioral linguistics is there, but debates on that. But this is a very important point to come to. See, the problem in philosophy, social theory, cultural analysis, when we face an ethical issue, how to go back in theory and reinterpret. That is the challenge. That is the critical activity. Okay. So whether that is allowed or not, there comes the freedom, academic freedom, intellectual freedom, philosophical freedom. So Maurice Merleau-Ponty's analysis of intersubjectivity tells us that other minds are given to us only as incarnate, as belonging to faces and gestures. Ethics of the Face of Levinas, you can remember here. It establishes that consciousness is fundamentally intersubjective and cannot be understood as an isolated individual phenomenon. This is a problem in philosophy, you know that, subjectivity, objectivity is a huge problem. Many of our understanding of humanness coming together will stuck up if you don't have a proper understanding of intersubjectivity. It implies that Merleau-Ponty's phenomenology of embodiment reveals that consciousness is not a disembodied mental substance or a purely neural process, but emerges through the lived body's engagement with its environment. If you remember, I said it earlier also. I'm repeating it, because in this context of intersubjectivity, this means that embodied action, sensory-motor capacities, and practical engagements with meaningful context are not merely peripheral to consciousness, but constitutes. So you see this in the context of intersubjectivity also. So, Q is not a very good word, advice. What to gather from here? Perhaps it's time for me to stop. Yeah, that's why. How much more time do I have? 7 minutes. Oh, that means it's over. 7 minutes. Yeah. So, reality and thought. Consciousness precipitates knowledge that is emancipatory and self-transcending. This I gather from the understanding of embodiment, embodied intersubjectivity, okay, and the lived world. And reality and thought, what is there? It is consciousness precipitates as knowledge. That is emancipatory and self-transcending. Self-transcending. Otherwise there is no knowledge. It should be emancipatory. What is the meaning of emancipatory? Knowledge should be able to liberate you. Make you go up. Grow. That is the meaning. Of course, there is a lot of critical meaning in that. If you come to critical theorists, they will say so many other things. Primary meaning is this. The why question that necessitates thought, reality, consciousness is an ethical choice. Think about the debate of ancient Indian philosophy and other things, thought. Why this universe? Why consciousness? How will you answer this? You can say what is consciousness? The structure of consciousness. Why? Different cultures have given different meaning, different ideas to this. If you come to Indian thought, they will say it's play. If you come to the Christian tradition, there is a concept of Trinity. In Hinduism also there is a concept of Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. And this Trinity, it says that creation, the purpose of creation, consciousness, is love, is community. That's why. Who wants this world? Do you want it? Yeah, when you are happy, it's fine. Next moment you are unhappy. You will die. Miseries will come. Look the world around. Then you will ask, at least once in your life you will ask. Nonsense. Who made this? Oh, everywhere contradiction. We have a thinker in Kerala. Very good. He was an Advaitin, Vedantin, sannyasi. Now he has become Pakka atheist. And he would say that if I see God, I'll beat him up. That's what he's telling. Because everywhere violence. Everywhere, what do you say, miserable kind of shortcomings. You go out, I'm an animal lover. Everywhere poor dogs, cats standing for one-time meal. This world belongs to them also. It's not our private property. How can we justify the cruelty done to animals, lesser human beings? Think about AI. Okay. Yes. So in phenomenology, the why question in metaphysics, as I represented it, is mainly cosmogonic. Cosmogony means kind of constructed mythology, implying ultimate reality due to metaphysical necessity. This is metaphysical necessity only. But in phenomenology, as it is the ethical understanding, it is an ethical choice. You think about the answer given by Buddha, Gautama Buddha. You believe in God? I'm not interested in that. I want to solve the problem of human beings. Whether God is there or not is not my concern. I want to help human beings. So that is ethical choice. You have to make a choice. Either a cosmogonic choice or an ethical choice. You can object. No problem. The why of ethical relationality, shared world, the dimension of meaning, therefore, the why of consciousness is community, coexistence, cultural choices, ethical choices. Yeah, now the AI question. I'll finish it in 5 minutes. The AI question. We need to have kind of ethical quotient in looking at AI. Knowledge is intersubjective and critical. It is decentered knowledge, emancipatory and therapeutic. It instills the critique of positivist and scientific concept of intelligence. Positivism is a kind of cancerous growth in science. If you ask the philosophers of science, you can understand. It is a kind of science's unscientific emphasis on itself. Uncritical looking at all science, by science. Yeah, that is positivism. Therefore, it implicates AI and its approach to intelligence. That's what I think. The concept of intelligence have approved and accepted scientifically and alternatively. Intelligence, as per the popular sources, has been defined in many ways: the capacity or abstraction, logic, understanding, self-awareness, learning, etc., etc. But this is positivistic. Why? There is an alternative understanding of intelligence. Intelligence is emotional intelligence, radical intelligence, intersubjective intelligence, critical intelligence, embodied intelligence. Not pure abstract intelligence. Okay? So critique of AI, the narrow or the soft AI and its conception of intelligence, as we have seen above, may argue that the qualitative dimension of intelligence can be reduced to the adaptive behaviors within environment or context. But we know, after various phenomenological and post-phenomenological critical deconstructive engagements, if you're interested, you read, so many names are given. If you go for a serious interview in IIT, I've heard, you tell so many names, they will reject you because it's name dropping. I'm doing that mistake here. Anyway, I don't want a job here. Okay. So many names are given for the students. So to conclude, AI machine learning is okay. There are two types. Machine learning, wonderful. Let it go on. But AGI is a problem. That is the area where they talk about singularity and all that. AGI, general intelligence, has to be able to encounter intelligence as consciousness, embodied, which can inherently, effectively and critically contrast convergent thinking with broad divergent thinking. Should be able to do that. Convergent thinking is basically converging, because from an ethical point of view, I'm telling, this will give one answer to one question to one answer. But divergent thinking, wherein we are involved, social sciences, philosophy, art, liberal education, we can have multiple answers. That is called divergent. Perhaps in science, they cannot achieve this divergence. That's why in science, there are post-empirical sciences. They don't call science. Science any longer is not a singular. It is sciences. Post-empirical sciences. Yes. So, what I'm thinking is, responsible AI through responsible, ethically poised HI. So this is a paradigm, I think. When we talk about AI, we should think about a responsible HI. Recently I read a book where the author was telling, it is not comparing human intelligence and artificial intelligence, or making artificial intelligence as human intelligence. General intelligence can think, imagine, etc. No, we have to go for more powerful AI evolutionarily better than human intelligence. Fine. Possible, they say, some people say that. IBM and all that, they are doing that. When many AI enthusiasts see the future of AI with enormous modification of HI, your answer. Human intelligence, many philosophers and ethicists point out that there are gross AI challenges such as commodification of learning, reduction of education to information transfer, replacement of human relationship with algorithmic interactions, and aggravation of inequalities between those with access to cutting edge technologies and those without. Immediate problem, perhaps we will solve all these later. In an interesting write-up, Why Artificial Intelligence is Neither Artificial Nor Intelligent, Miriam Nassi Al-Rashid shares with us that the ethical leadership should make AI accountable to a governance framework that ensures, this is what I said, responsible and responsible HI, to make responsible AI. And what should we do to make human intelligence responsible? That is the question. So the first question is making us responsible, not ethically challenging AI. Make us capable of challenging AI. That thing will go on. And Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather, he said recently that the ethicsless astronomical investments by the tech giants may replace human labor with AI for profit. And Geoffrey Hinton, then popular Harari, you all know Harari, and maybe Roger Penrose, you mentioned Penrose, and I can give you 100 names here. They're all warning us against irresponsible AI. Okay? So, then the concluding line. A responsible ethical choice of HI should make AI to foster relational authenticity. This is a very important word, authentic. We should be authentic as human beings, ethically authentic. That is responsible HI, where we can understand, incorporate, and it needs an intercultural dialogue. Someone asked about Professor Srinivasan, how interculturally this can be. Our professor was asking. So this intercultural dialogue is important to tell what is authenticity. Authenticity in one word is radical honesty, radical truthfulness. But it is much more than that. So many other cultures, fringe cultures, all of them should come, sit in dialogue, then only we will be able to define what is authenticity. That authenticity is to be relational authenticity, to support peaceful just coexistence of different cultural and intercultural identities and claims the biosphere and the whole of the Gaia. So I remember 2 or 3 very important thinkers, environmental thinkers, they were telling self-transcendence is a very important embodied knowledge. Whether AI can do that? They were telling, when we talk about ethics, talk about peace, talk about knowledge, we should be able to look at the universe from the spider's point of view also. It's not my view. Yeah? From a spider's point of view, from a cat's point of view, from a dog's point of view, from a microbe's point of view. Yes. Yeah. Yes. I have a paper, I have all these names. I'm not name dropping again. So these are all wonderful thinkers. They are all reminding us how to make AI responsible through an embodied, intersubjectively, culturally sensitive, responsible HI. Thank you. I hope I made some sense. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Pius V. Thomas, for the wonderful session. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, it was wonderful for me because I'm a student of English literature and not linguistics. But I did identify with a lot of things. So when you first talked about the idea of subjective and objective and Kant and Hegel and the idea of how thought leads to knowledge, which is empirical. So I was reminded of Francis Bacon, who said, open your minds and go beyond the shores and explore the world. And very Renaissance ideas where you have to break the constructed molds in order to challenge your thought perception and reality. So that's how he got us freed us from the Middle Ages. So that is what Indian tradition also looks at. So wonderful, wonderful session, and I really enjoyed and I learned a lot. So I've taken a lot of notes, which I'm going to study. So thank you so much, sir. It was wonderful.
I'm very happy that the roof is a little above.
No, sir, I'm being very genuine. As a researcher, I'm being very genuine. So now I open the floor for questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. I really love your lecture. One of my bad habits is whatever I see in Western philosophy, I try to infuse in Indian context. So, whenever I see your lecture in intersubjectivity and lived experience, I remember that on the context of temporal necessity. My question is, the philosopher or the philosophical school who does not accept the reality of time at all, how they will explain the lived experience? Particularly, I am trying to point out Madhyamika Buddhism, Nagarjuna's philosophy, and another philosophy is Sankhya philosophy, particularly. I have taken Sankhya philosophy. Both philosophical schools have not accepted the reality of time at all. How they will explain the lived experience in the context of Purusha Prakriti relationship, or in the context of Madhyamika philosophy, Sambandha Sambandhi relationship. So, this is my question, how they will explain the lived experience without holding the acceptance of reality of time?
So, what I'm thinking is, this is the main critique against Madhyamika, Sankhya. I have the whole of, I have thinkers, those who called it a kind of Gnosticism, uncritical kind of pitfalls in Indian thought. That's one answer. It's not the complete answer. But recently I wrote a paper with a lot of effort. I'm a student of Buddhism only. Post-traditional Buddhism. How to look at Buddhism from a post-traditional point of view. And I was trying to explain intersubjectivity, the same poor intersubjectivity. And a friend of mine told, there is no self or subjectivity in Buddhism. But what I was trying to argue is, in Buddhism, there is a cosmopolitan idea of suffering. Who suffers? As long as suffering is there, the concept of suffering. Now Buddha himself has started, na? Dukkha samudaya niruddha marga. Suffering is there, time is there, intersubjectivity is there. It is to be derived. Why they couldn't do that? That is the problem. If you look at Shankara, Shankara is called Prachanda Bauddhaya. Why? Shankara was trying to somehow go beyond the Madhyamika or the Nagarjuna or later Madhyamikas. Full denial. He wanted to ontologize, create something. There is something. This is a kind of ongoing debate. So it's a relational. When you say that there is no time, your perspective is this time. There is an internal time for them in different categories, expressed through different categories. Try to find out that. That's all. This is dialogue. This is dialogue. This we have to do. Instead of doing that, instead of actually keeping it open. Because, see, for example, when Sankhya was imagined, when Shankara was doing, just think about the word, the general awareness level, science. They were doing it centuries ago. Okay? They were doing it centuries ago. So, of course, they had a life world. They had Yeah. They had, no, it's okay, it's okay. They had a life world. That life world is to be interculturally translated, hermeneutically interpreted. That is a philosopher's job. Instead of asking how, you do it. As a researcher, you can do. We have to do that. This is the way the knowledge will relationally progress. Okay. So the biggest problem is, most of the time, we isolate thought. We cannot isolate thought. We try to say that, see, this is my area, my culture, my identity. It's impossible. No culture is pure in itself. Every culture is intercultural. Suppose if I am from Kerala, and I am a Syrian Christian. You know Syrian Christians? Yes. We claim that we are very, with wonderful origin, and we are, our ancestors were all Brahmins, all that. Very privileged. But I do not know who is my great-great-grandfather. Who knows? So that's what postmodern thinkers are telling. All the identities are basically, will end up in difference. So this is a point of debate. Okay? So that is to be brought into or translated into kind of dialogical, intercultural, communicative pattern. Otherwise, we'll end up in violence. That we have to decide. It's our fate whether we should end up in violence or we live, coexist. The whole of culture making is basically to live together. I want to live, you also want to. A dog wants to live, cat wants to. You know this Jaina theory, no? Tirthankara, he died for a snake. He couldn't accept snake being burnt. So he said, burn me. Ramanuja, there's a very interesting, I'm from Indian context, I'm telling. Ramanuja's guru had given him a mantra. If this mantra is revealed to other people, he will go to hell. So he told, let me go to hell, other people will be saved, This openness to otherness, that should be the key word of our intercultural translatability. I can say only that much. Thank you.
We have a question, right? I come to you.
So it's a kind of a very basic question that after the discussion, can we conclude that truth or consciousness is truly experiential in nature, or it lies in the middle ground between perception, reality, or social framework?
What you said the second is more appropriate. So instead of metaphysically grounding, fixing, you have to make it relational. Okay? Part of social construction, part of our dialogue, part of our making. Because suppose we make a cultural truth, it is not permanent. It will be interpreted, reinterpreted. That is our nature. Man is an interpreting animal. Cultures are interpreting animals.
So can it be signifies that in the context of suffering, if you are having different suffering, I am having different suffering, so your truth will be different than mine? No,
it will be dialogically the same. When you stand in dialogue, see, what is your suffering?
It can be practical, it can be emotional, it can be anything.
Your language, no?
Yeah.
Your emotional kind of. Suppose you wanted to get first rank or something in your exam.
Yeah.
You got only third rank or you failed. Can I come and give a big lecture to you? Failing and there's nothing. So many people have failed. I failed. He failed. Failure is the step to future and all that. There is actually just a patting. This is the way suffering is shared. Suffering is shared in mutually compassionate gestures. Their suffering will become common. Your suffering will become common. And Buddha made it. Buddha actually made this common, no? What are the suffering according to Buddha? Birth,
That final point.
yeah, death, Vardhakya, all these are.
So it can
And-
lie between theism and atheism, like Charvakya Shastra and
Absolutely. And I would discuss with Professor Briggs tomorrow. Theism, atheism, all these are. There's no borderline between these two. Otherwise, the borderlines are border crossing. Now everybody knows it. People who are telling that I am a theist is lying. Someone is telling that I am absolutely atheist, he is also lying. Because there are moments of theism, there are moments of atheism. Okay, in everybody's life. They're border crossing all the time. Have you seen some modern, no, just for the sake of joke I am telling, have you seen established atheists? No God! But he'll be scared of a booth, a prayer and all that. I know it myself. There was an established atheist, a friend of mine. We were going to a remote place, just went for walking. And there was a kind of old house. I said, this is a haunted house. Then he said, then I will go this side. He doesn't believe in God. I'm trying to say it in simple language. Because these are all happening in different way, different realms, different kinds of, what do you say, different kinds of life world experience.
so the
There are no universally untouchable kind of constructions. They are all crisscrossing. Okay.
truth.
Melting. Osmosis, no? Yeah. Osmosis means they'll slowly move from this side to that side to this side. Slowly they will mingle together. So theism, atheism is basically a kind of osmotic, with an osmotic border.
So we can conclude that truth remains same, but the nuances transform with time. We can.
Yes, that is another way of putting it. Another way of putting it. Yes.
That's.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Since you talked about AI and HI and how we can make HI ethical, we should make HI ethical and responsible. I wanted to hear about something we didn't discuss. How AI is affecting the definition of reality nowadays, because every time I'm seeing content every day, I'm asking 100 times a day, is this real? Is this real? Is this real? Is there a criteria we can rely on to or to hold on while just seeing the everyday content, to hold to the reality, to know what is real, what is not? It
I
will
think
be
our
difficult for them.
intelligence is critical dimension of our thought intelligence is powerful enough to make out these two. The problem is some systems will make us gullible to all these, that's all. So for example, you take the history of philosophy. There are two paradigms. One is verifiability. What is truth? You have to verify. Can you verify everything? You cannot. So Karl Popper came and told us falsifiability. Okay. So our critical intelligence, our critical understanding, our critical involvement, our critical living, that's why we use the word of embodiment and all that. Dialogue, which will be able to rectify this. Of course, there are a lot of unreal things are coming. You are talking about a practical issue. This practical issue can be resolved. But the problem is, virtual reality, it can create a kind of singularity. That's the point.
Okay, thank you, sir.
It has been already discussed by a great thinker, Baudrillard, French thinker. Long time ago. It was a prophecy. What is happening with people, those who are living in mobile phones? No? He made a study of that. That time AI was not that powerful. And there are so many thinkers, for example, starting with Alan Turing, John Searle, Daniel Dennett. David Chalmers, for both and against. Okay?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Because that kind of a debate is going on. That is the positive thing. People are discussing how to challenge this. That is the indication that we have a critical faculty.
Sir, at the very outset of your presentation, you have mentioned one critical difference between fundamental reality and ultimate reality. And you also mentioned that fundamental reality is a subject of science. Science stops at the fundamental reality. It doesn't go beyond that. And ultimate reality that you have mentioned, it is co-creational. Like it is within our society that we are creating an ultimate reality which we are not experiencing. The moment you try to experience it, it just evaporates. So, like ultimate reality that we are talking about, especially in philosophy, is it a very ethical question to discuss about ultimate reality, or like how do we pursue the ultimate reality if everything is ethical?
Yeah, that is the distinction that I made. The metaphysics, it will talk about fundamental reality, not only science. It will talk about fundamental reality, relations, relationality, all that. But it will also talk about ultimate reality. Okay, so this ultimate reality is dogmatic. That's why I mentioned the example of Buddha. So when it comes to ultimate reality, instead of falling into metaphysical jargon and metaphysical kind of strictures or dogmas, we have to go to ethical choices. And this ethical choices is very well explained in a project like phenomenology. That's what I say. Okay.
And like one more point, like you mentioned, what and how of the reality will come first rather than why. You mentioned what and how of the reality comes first rather than why. What is the why?
No. I said most of the time in conventional science or conventional metaphysics, we are into what? We should answer why. Why questions? Why questions cannot be answered by religion, okay, or institutionalized religion, or science. Take the whole debate which is going on. They cannot say why this is. That's why I told already, consciousness. Why consciousness? There are. I told you the example of Trinity, the example of Brahma, the example of consciousness. Yeah. That can be worked out. Very interesting question, fundamental. These kind of fundamentals are to be addressed. And as I told you, there are lots of loopholes in all our arguments. Because if you talk about realism, metaphysical realism, there are several shades to that. Each thinker is contextual, particular context. From that context you have to derive it. So when you talk about finality or the ultimate reality, which context? Which I didn't do here. I don't have time for all that. So that is the way philosophy should progress. Thank you.
Can I ask one last question? Okay. Dr. Srinivasan was talking about attention. Thomas Fuchs, one of the leading post-phenomenologists, he talks about a very interesting concept called protension in his paper, Not Yet Conscious. So I think he's a psychologist or psychiatrist. So very interestingly, when we're trying to map, like how Srinivasan was talking about, Sir was talking about how mapping attention in terms of millisecond, second time with respect to that. In philosophy, when we talk about that, he talks about in his paper the concept of possibility and how irrespective of AI trying to embody the concept into say like AI or simulate it, he's saying it's not possible to sort of have that possibility in the attention that human beings have. So in terms of attention span that we have when we are looking at things, we are also at the same time thinking about different possibilities of what might happen in the future in that little micro millisecond of span time that we have. So he says that it's not possible to for AI to embody the human consciousness in terms of how we are talking about it. My question here is, in terms of having a conference like this where we are merging disciplines together and sort of trying to have a dialogue, are we in retrospect going back and redoing a structure where we are going to study in the future, say like disciplines will want to study something where we do not have concrete psychology, philosophy, mathematics disciplines separately, or should we merge, like as in academia, should merge all the disciplines together and have like a big body or a branch of, say like a knowledge, thought, and what is your thought?
Exactly. That's what at the very beginning I mentioned, it is an interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary engagement. Thomas Fuchs said very categorically, because it's a view which is contrasting to many of the GI projects. It cannot be. The self-transcendence, that's what I used, self-transcendence. Your ability to see beyond you. But there are thinkers who say that don't compare machine knowledge or AI knowledge with human knowledge. No meaning in doing that. We may do that. We'll do that. So if you are telling categorically it cannot be done, that is, for the time being, it is absurd. But the point is this: we have to, in an interdisciplinary fashion, in a deepened understanding of our disciplinary boundaries, or going beyond the boundaries, we have to keep on asking this question. This question should not be stopped. See, the academia will become very weak after some time. So people, those who are doing research, in 2 days they will complete a PhD thesis. Intelligent people, now they are developing plagiarism, checking programs to counter this problem. AI. One thesis came to me. Beautiful language. All done by ChatGPT. Concepts, everything. So what is the meaning of doing research? So that is the critical, as you said, that's what Thomas Fuchs is telling. That critical, organic moment of thought, self-transcendence, that is with us. Okay? That is to be put in dialogue with AI continuously. That is the interdisciplinary job. Interdisciplinarity. And disciplinary narcissism, that's what I call. It's a disease. English literature people thinking that philosophy is not good. Funny, it's happening. You go to colleges and all that, people will take pride in their subjects. It's absurd. And interdisciplinarity is not multidisciplinarity or transdisciplinarity. Interdisciplinarity is deepening your subject in dialogue with other subjects. Roland Barthes and all those people, they're doing that. Cultural studies is a very good example. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful and engaging session. So we end the session now. Over to Iman.
Thank you so much.